of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First, we've got an approval of the memorandum of the March 15th, 2021 regular meeting. Copy has been posted. There's no concerns. I'll make a motion to approve. Second from Vice President Plunkett. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Memoranda of the March 15th, 2021 regular town council meeting is approved by a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Next, we've got an approval of the memorandum of the March 19th, 2021 executive meeting. Copy has also been posted on that. Unless there are any issues, I also will make a motion to approve that.
Second.
A quick second from Vice President Plunkett. Appreciate that. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Very good. The memoranda of the March 19th, 2021 executive town council meeting is approved by a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Next, we've got request to speak. If you are looking to speak, please fill in the request to speak form here. I've got 5, or if you are online, you can raise your hand and Ms. Lacey will also call on you. Please note, I've got one of yours virtually, Larry, so I think we're good there. Thank you. Please note you got 3 minutes to speak. If you can give your name and address for the record, and we'll start the 3 minutes. I'll give you a 1 minute warning when you got a minute left, and we'll go from there. And Larry, you're actually up first.
Larry Jones, 4513 Austin Oaks Court. Hope to get a little bit more than 3 minutes. That didn't happen, so we'll sort of jump right into it. My concern is regarding the Zionsville Preservation, or I'm sorry, the Zionsville Conservation Preservation District. I think I've got that wrong, but the basic levels I have of concern with it is, one, it seems that we are setting up a new level of government, somewhat in line with both the Zionsville Board of Zoning Appeals. My concern is, as I've read through the documentation, and what appears to be being put out there is a situation where, when it comes to variances or demolition or other things regarding new housing in this district, they're going to have to come before this group first to get an approval, and then they're still going to have to come before us. And I can see kind of a circular problem with what group's on top, and I don't see any way that this is going to get resolved. I would have liked to provide a little more information, but my second concern with this thing is, once it's enacted, the town of Zionsville is going to get sued. As I've read through it, my core concern with it is it's being presented as a way to preserve the historic homes and structures in the village, or in this defined area of the village. The concern with it is that as you read through it, not only does it apply to houses that are considered historic, which really haven't been defined yet, but every other non-contributing, contributing, vacant lot, every parcel in this area. And my concern is this thing is being put out there as a way to help benefit this end of town, when really it's a very controlling device. The second reason we're going to get sued is that there's a lot of language in there, especially when it comes to demolition, that individuals have to hire a licensed architect, a structural engineer, a licensed appraiser. That is a standard that is no one else is ever held to when it goes through the process of getting something in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals. An individual can make any variance appeal they would like, or request they would like. And the process, once again, I would have liked to discuss more of why we approved 98 or 100% of them, is that the core issue is that we have a system that works, that makes sure that we actually get to a point that the person who has come before us actually walks away with something that's usable and viable. It's not about turning people down. It's a process about getting people approved. The third issue that I'm really kind of concerned about is that I think a lot of residents who are supporting this are going to find out that while their home is not historic, it meets this rhythm of the area statement, which means if you've got a 900-foot cottage style home and you think, well, you know, it's not particularly historic, it sits on a nice lot, I can demo it and do something else, you're going to find that if you go through the details of what is being proposed, you're going to find yourself basically held to, the only thing you can ever put back on that lot
Thanks,
is
Larry.
another 900-foot cottage. And so
Thanks, Larry.
my core concern that
I appreciate that. That's the 3 minutes.
There we go.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next up, we've got Glenn Hoagie. Glenn, are you here? Or is he online, Amy? Okay. Well, if Glenn shows up, we will get to him. Next up, I've got Sam Sachs.
Good evening. My name is Sam Sachs. I represent the Indianapolis Executive Airport. The address is 11329 East State Road, 32. So I am here this evening representing the airport. So on your agenda, item 7E is discussing a potential rezone of some property. This property is directly south of the airport as it sits, and it's property that is currently zoned residential. And we've been fighting for years now to kind of keep residential homes out of that area. Obviously, having a single family home neighborhood directly south of the airport by about 2,500 feet is not ideal. So we are looking and hoping to rezone this area to anything else besides residential at this point. So whether that's industrial, commercial, agricultural, basically anything that keeps single family homes out of the direct approach and departure path of the airport. I do have a couple of numbers. I'll share them real fast. When we extend our runway down to 7,000 feet, which is either going to be 2022 or 2023, if a neighborhood is built where this residential area is, we are looking at about 2,300 feet away from the end of the runway. So that's pretty close. It's less than half a mile. Aircraft approaching would be at an altitude between about 236 feet to 302 feet. That's pretty low. These are all reasons to keep families out of the approach path of an airport. There's also other reasons, such as wildlife concerns. Most new neighborhoods have retention ponds. Retention ponds attract geese, ducks, blue herons, all large birds that do not commingle well with aircraft. Obviously, everyone knows that the miracle on the Hudson and what happened with those geese there. We want to keep that out of this area, obviously. So again, we're here to fully support the rezoning of this land and keeping families, possibly hundreds of homes in this area away from the airport. And that's all I had.
Thanks, Sam. Next up, we've got William Fry.
Good evening. My name is William Fry. I live at 1451 Trail Creek Court, which is in Carmel. But I'm here representing also the Hamilton County Airport Authority with respect to the zoning request for the land to the south of the airport. Sam did a good job of explaining some of the issues, but I just want to kind of reiterate that housing and airports don't necessarily mix. There's a safety issue involved. There's a noise issue involved. That area south of the airport is designated by the state of Indiana as a noise sensitive area, and therefore requires permitting of it, as well as notification of any purchases of those properties that they are going to be near an airport. But as we've seen historically, people don't read their closing documents, and we get nothing but complaints from residents of near airports. So I'm just trying to urge you to vote to rezone that property. Thanks.
Thanks, William. We've got, I think it's Sean White or Whittle, one of the two. You'll correct me though, whichever way.
It's Sean White and not the snowboard breather.
Time.
So I'm Sean White. I'm the Vice President, General Manager of First Wing Jet Center, which is the airport business that operates at Indianapolis Executive Airport. We have about 50 employees across those that greet and handle the aircraft, to aircraft maintenance technicians, to a flight training facility as well. Also speaking in support of a rezoning request for somewhat of the obvious reasons. There's probably no more incompatible land use with airports as single single-family residential. My father's a developer and has been developing on the north side of Indianapolis for many, many years. So I'm not against development. None of us are, but we're for the right kind of development. There was a study done in concert with the town this past year that identified some other possible uses. And so would strongly encourage that. We want to be community stewards. We want to be partner with the community. In fact, we're hosting in our facility for free the Zionsville prom this year. We do other things. Hopefully some of you have been out to our open houses. We don't want there to be a negative interaction with the community at large. But obviously when you put incompatible land uses together, things like that are going to naturally occur. The airport, as we have seen, and as Sam mentioned, it's growing and expanding. That's not a function of us necessarily trying to do anything, but that's a function of the fact that you all and the communities around here, from Zionsville to Carmel to Westfield to Whitestown, are all growing and are investing in economic development. We view ourselves as the economic gateway to the community. And so we're naturally growing because there are businesses coming here, people are locating here, and that's a good thing. But in that, we've got to make sure that the area around the airport stays and compatible land uses stay in effect. So once again, just rising in support of that.
Thanks, Sean. Amy or Joe, anyone online? We've got one speaker online. Do you want to promote him or her?
Hello, can you hear me?
We got you, Mr. Triscari.
So my name is Craig Triscari, 3270 Paddock Road. As of April 2021, Van Trust still has failed to run the 8-inch water line into the Saratoga after December 2018 rezoning passing, requiring Van Trust to run a line when they set up their water. There's some hope as Van Trust has moved for the first time piping into the Saratoga area for storage after about 1.5 years in violation and about 6 months of being denied occupancy of their industrial site. Let's hope they can finish the water line. It has currently been really a failure and a nightmare for this community. The current landscape on the berm facing Saratoga is still currently incorrect with the wrong trees and tree size as promised by Van Trust in the public hearing in 2018. And the project manager at Zionsville is very well aware of that. As your home county tax assessment letters are being prepared to be sent out by the county this year, people will receive their assessments in the mail. A reminder that you as a taxpayer have the power to set up an appointment and make your case to the county of why you should be paying less on your taxes to the town of Zionsville on your property based on some of the development that has occurred in your area. In the last 30 days, the area has been overrun by trash being spewed all over Whitestown and Zionsville area off of 267 and I-65. The area which Whitestown calls Whitestown Crossing actually looked like Whitestown trash dump. Both towns, both Zionsville and Whitestown, have been called to pick up the trash in their respective areas. I would highly recommend you enforce your sanitation requirements as plastics are being blown into the retention ponds throughout that entire community. It's going to cause problems. You will also need to start working on ordinance for noise issues for long-term construction as people are going to be calling the county police if noise occurs early in the morning, as it did in phase 1. You have the authority and responsibility to fix this. This is years of construction of industrial right next to residential property. The zoning is not necessarily the best. So we really need to address that. If you plan on buying a home within the Zionsville address, be very cautious. The leadership doesn't abide by their comprehensive plans, nor do they care about your property value. The town council team has provided zero value to the greater rural Zionsville community to date. And rural equity means little to the leadership as of now, as they continue to damage the rural community with higher taxes, higher pollution, uncontrolled zoning development, which are showing to be community and family disruptive plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Triscari. One thing I'll note for this council, I received a note from Van Trust regarding the water line, and it did commence this past week of spring break. The contractor being construction on the line on 4-5 with work focused on the eastern portions of the water line. This week, they'll continue to work on the eastern end of the line and continue moving west down County Road 400. So that is progressing as expected. Any other requests to speak out here? I don't see Mr. Hoagie, so we will consider that closed. Thank you for everyone speaking today. Next, we'll move on to the mayor administration update. I understand there is no update today.
Yeah,
Amy?
there are no updates.
Okay. We have no old business, so we'll move on to new business. First, we've got the Boone County Solid Waste Management District presentation by Executive Director Jennifer Lawrence. Thanks for joining us, Jennifer.
Good evening. I have a PowerPoint for you that he's pulling up right now. My name is Jennifer Lawrence. I'm the Executive Director of the Boone County Solid Waste Management District, and I appreciate the invitation from Councilman Pluckett to come present to you to give an update about the district or actually introduce the district to you. So just briefly, we'll go over the mission. The district offers multiple programs, and we act as a resource for Boone County residents to be responsible stewards of the environment and the public health of those residents. Just a quick brief overview of how the district is set up. The Boone County Solid Waste Management District is not a county office. We're actually a state mandated special unit of government, and we're dictated by the Indiana State Code and the state legislature. We have very specific Indiana code on who sits on our board. And as you see on the slide, it is made up of all elected officials. We do have a county councilwoman, Marcia Wilhoit. She acts as our president. We do have all 3 county commissioners on our board, and Commissioner Santelli acts as our vice president right now. We have Councilman Pluckett representing the town of Zionsville. And then we also have 2 additional spots. We actually talk about this in your next agenda item, but we have 2 open spots right now. The one is for a secondary town and council representative from Zionsville. And then we have one last spot due to census numbering and things of that nature. We used to have the city of Lebanon's mayor, but now we actually have another, it's either going to be the city of the city of Lebanon's mayor will stay on our board, or we will have a council representative from another one of the municipalities besides Zionsville throughout Boone County. And that is actually appointed by the county commissioners. You yourself on your town council spot, you guys can appoint your own. District staff, it's myself. I have been the director for 10 years. And we also have Darla Bavard as the assistant director, and she has been a part of the district for 23 years. We have 2 contracted employees with Dale Kennedy. He's our CPA and our financial officer. And we have Kate Beatty that acts as our board attorney. She's from Denton's downtown Indianapolis. And then we also lastly have a citizens advisory committee. These are all Boone County residents. And they also come from the solid waste district industry, other entities. Anita Bowen, she's actually the director of senior services. Howard Cundiff, he's a retiree from the Indiana State Department of Health. Abby Messenger, you may know, she's the director of the Boone County Health Department. Cindy Russell works for Boone County Resource Recovery, another good solid waste partner. Cheryl Silver, she's a private environmental consultant. And then Troy Terrell actually represents Raise Trash. But again, all Boone County residents, they review our budget on an annual basis. And they also review our community grants that we'll talk about a little bit in just a minute. And just to touch on district funding, because we're not a county office, solid waste districts across the state can be funded in 35 different ways. Boone County, from the very beginning, wanted to keep us off the tax rolls, off the property tax rolls. So we set up, we have a special assessment that actually comes on the trash bill. If you're a residential trash, it's 40 cents per month. If it's industrial or commercial, it's 40 cents per cubic yard, and then 50 cents a ton if it's clean fill tipping. We have a public-private partnership with all of our haulers in Boone County. They actually collect those fees for us on the trash bill. They remit them to us, and they actually keep 10% to cover those administrative costs on our behalf. So it's kind of a unique situation, but it's worked very well here in Boone County. And also It's kept us off the property taxes, which has been a benefit. So on to a bit of our programming. Number one thing that we are in charge of, proper disposal and recycling initiatives. Our Tox Drop collection events. We host 2 collection events a year, one in the spring in Lebanon and one in the fall at Zionsville, right here at the Municipal Services Building, with great partnership with the town. We collect household hazardous waste that day. We collect tires, we collect electronics. Last year in 2020, even with COVID, because everyone stayed home and everyone cleaned out their garages. So we actually serviced just under 1,200 vehicles last year. We collected 26 tons of household hazardous waste, 20 tons of electronics, and 5 tons of tires. So it was quite a good year for us, even with COVID. And then some other special collections that we help support throughout the county. Pharmaceuticals, there's 7 pharmaceutical collection bins throughout the county, all located at police departments and the county jail. And then also the Sharps program that we partner with the Boone County Health Department. And any resident can come into the health department, obtain one of the red containers you see in the middle of the screen, take it home, fill it up. That's if their own diabetic needs or they have a pet that's been sick and gives a lot of shots. We actually hear a lot about that. They fill that container up, bring it back to the health department. It is disposed of correctly, free of charge, and they get another container if it's needed. So it's a great partnership. Boone County was the first in the state to start this Sharps collection program. And it was in the early 2000s when it happened. And I will say we have been the model for several solid waste districts and several health departments across the state for this program. Okay. And as you can guess, probably recycling is one thing that we certainly promote. We promote recycling right. We do a lot of education about curbside versus drop-off sites. We do promotion of reduce, reuse, and recycle in that order. That's really the priorities. And then we do actually host 2 county recycling drop spots, one in Thorntown, one in Advance. And I will say last year we collected 154 tons of recycling at those 2 spots. The reason we host them out in those rural areas because they are not offered curbside recycling. So that's why we have those in the rural areas, because we certainly promote curbside recycling first. It's better quality when it comes on curbside versus a drop off, especially unmanned site. So like in Zionsville, we really just promote recycling right at the curb. Okay, next. Reuse Heart and Soul. I say this every time I talk about this program. It's my absolute favorite program. We do this every February around Valentine's Day. This year we collected 8,399 pairs of shoes. We pass those on to a nonprofit here in Central Indiana called Changing Footprints. And it's great because every pair of shoes that come in get sorted and then redistributed to those in need. And over 80% of those stay right here in Central Indiana. So we're really helping the local need get those shoes. Ones that come in as singles or ones that come in that are just, they've seen their day, they're not going to be reused. They actually get shipped out to Nike and they get recycled as a part of the regrind program. So it's a win-win. Every pair of shoes is either getting reused or recycled. So it's great. Next year in 2022 will be our 10th year to collect shoes. And as you can see, we were just about 8,500 pairs this year. Our goal next year is to hit 10,000 pairs. So it's a lofty goal, but I think we can do it. We've got local libraries, schools, businesses all kind of join in, and it's a great effort. Youth education is something we've always been a big part of. It has changed a lot in the last year because, as you can imagine, our classroom program, we do a Freddy the Fish that talks about water quality and keeping things out of our waterways. Recycling superheroes, which is really a basics of the recycling. Edible landfill, it's a great STEM project, and we actually teach the engineering of a real landfill, and then start pulling those pieces out and how much smaller we could make a landfill if we recycle the proper items. We've kind of shifted gears, not as many classroom programs, but we're doing more library programs now. Those are getting back up. We've always been big into the parks programs, and we've been partners with Zionsville's Nature Play Days for the last few years. So great partnership there. Next, please. ABC, a bench for caps. This is where youth organizations throughout the Boone County collect 200 pounds of caps, as you can see at the bottom. They sort them, they weigh them, they make sure they're clean. They exchange those 200 pounds in and they get a bench back for their use anywhere here in Boone County. Several of the schools step in and they do them at their playgrounds. The one on the upper right is actually at Stonegate Elementary. It's a nice purple one that's on their playground. But we have many organizations that participate in this program, and it's great for the kids to see what they can do, recycle, and what they can actually get from it. So next. A couple of cleanup efforts that we do. We do 11 the Cleanest City. It's really about a litter cleanup. We really partner with the Lebanon Rotary Club on this. We host a big spring team cleanup. We get about 450 people out cleaning up different areas of the city. We host Throwaway Thursdays, which are you donate your lunch hour to clean up litter. We have Adopt a Bucket, which is the stand-up cigarette butt collection containers that we cost share with businesses to place outside their businesses. And then we do Adopt a Spots for those organizations and families that want to take care of their area year round. And then with Zionsville, we actually have been a longtime partner since the beginning with Zionsville Creek Fest, where we go out and help clean up Eagle Creek and then do the educational fair as well. Been canceled last year. We're hoping that'll get going again this year. Next, community grants. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. This has been a 12-year program. We've done everything from cigarette butt containers, flag collection bins, rain barrels, lots of picnic tables and benches made from recycled materials. But we've also helped out town of Zionsville many times. The Zion Nature Center has received recycled chairs for their classrooms in the past. The picnic tables, we've refurbished all of theirs. Many of the recycling infrastructure that different organizations need. And then this year, the Zionsville Parks actually received a grant to help out with their new dog park. So some of the entities for the dogs out there made of recycled plastics were purchased through our grant. Some other entities I wanted to mention right here in Zionsville that have benefited this year's grants. The Lions Club received some new picnic tables and trash containers. Earth Mama Compost, they've been a big partner with their climate action plan and partnering and getting that going with residential. We actually helped Earth Mama Compost start right here in Boone County and grant some of the kits for her to start. So we helped get her here. And then the Zionsville Chamber of Commerce, they're doing a really unique grant this year. They're actually purchasing a wide variety of takeout containers that are compostable. So it teams up with Earth Mama Compost, but also get some of the takeout restaurants, hopefully using some of those containers. So it'll be more environmentally friendly. Next, again, we're of course on social media like everyone else. Waste Watch is our monthly e-newsletter. Hopefully you might get it already, but if not, please come sign up for it. We actually get a fantastic response from this monthly e-newsletter. We have our little section just, you know, how do you dispose of this? How do you recycle that? Talks about our Talks Away coming up, but we get really good feedback with Waste Watch. And then of course we do our best to keep our website up to date. Again, acting as a resource for all residents to dispose of things. Next. And then I would be remiss if I did not mention April, of course, is Earth Month. Got lots of things going this month. We've partnered with all the Boone County libraries, including, of course, Huff C. Mayfield, handing out the reusable totes to all their patrons coming in. We have our Tox Drop, first one coming up again in Lebanon, but it is open to all Boone County residents on the 24th at the Boone County Highway Department. And then Recycle Right Tuesdays, we've been going out and actually trying to catch people recycling, giving them good promotional items, and then kind of giving them good feedback if they are making mistakes while they're doing it. But I will say last week we went out and everyone we ran into were actually doing it perfectly. I was really just tickled beyond belief, but so hopefully I didn't jinx myself and tomorrow will go just as well. But those are just a few of the items that we have going for Earth Month. Next, yeah. And of course, any ideas and suggestions are always welcome and encouraged. And I don't know if you want me to stay up and talk about the next item or.
Well, I think if council's had any questions for you.
Yeah.
I'll open the floor. Any questions for Jennifer?
I would just say, sitting on the board, I really appreciate the work that you guys do. And, you know, a lot of these activities I was unaware of until I actually got involved with the Waste Management Board itself. I would encourage everybody to sign up for the Waste Watch once a month. They get, you know, the newsletters come out, update you on where they're doing Tox Drops, different events that's going on throughout the community. So do a good job.
No, thank you very much.
I just had a couple questions.
Sure.
If I look at the slide for the shoes,
Yes.
If I read that right, Zionsville only donated 734 shoes last year of your 10,000. Is that right? At the Hussey Mayfield Library, did I see that?
Actually, yes. So that was the biggest. Hussey Mayfield has been a collector since the very beginning. That was not the only Zionsville location.
Okay. So what was the
Those were
Zionsville?
just the top three.
Okay.
winners, yes.
I was gonna say, we Zionsville folks need to step it up and give us some shoes if it's only
Yeah, no.
734.
Those were, I will say, Weibo is the school to beat though. They get out there and they get pretty excited.
Who's that? Who'd you say?
Western Boone.
Good,
Okay.
good
Yeah.
folks out there in Weibo.
Well, we won't go there, but so they are
And
absolutely.
we actually purchased one of the 6-foot long plastic benches for whatever organization collects the most shoes.
I was just gonna say to Vice President Plunkett, if you need help when that comes around again, I'd love to help promote that and whatever we can. And
Yeah, let's do it.
it seems like a lot of folks are reading the Zionsville Facebook page quite a bit. Is that something you guys promote on through the mayor as well or through the town?
We should.
Yeah, because I mean, you're gonna reach a lot more people with that. And I think it'll be really good for everybody.
The street and stormwater department have been fabulous partners with us. The police chief and those guys with the pharmaceutical collection. So we've had great partnerships, but it's something we certainly would love to take advantage of.
Yeah, I'm sure if you get something to Amanda, I mean, we can get something posted and she'll do a really good job. So I
Yep.
think that'd be good to promote that.
And I know Amanda has a lot of our information weeded in or with yours as far as like heavy trash collections and things.
Okay.
The things you guys don't accept, those are the ones, that's the stuff we usually do. So it's a good to still give everybody a good avenue for that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, thank you.
When's the next talk drop? It's coming up, right?
April 24th.
There we go, April 24th. Very good. Councilors, any other questions? All right, thanks, Jennifer.
And the only thing I would mention, just going into the very next topic, as far as our board representation, we meet 5 times a year. It's usually the 3rd Thursday of the month. The ones that are left this year are June, September, and November. But we do meet at 8:30 in the morning, so.
Don't mention that until we elect Alex,
Sorry.
please.
I know after that presentation, though, everybody's excited to raise their hand, so, but just to give you a heads up.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, it's a good lead in then to item B here, which is a consideration of an appointment to the Boone County Solid Waste Management District. We decided to nominate Counselor Choi. I think you missed that meeting, so thank you. You did volunteer. I appreciate it.
volunteer and I'm up at 5:30 every morning. So
There we go.
no problem.
So unless there's any concerns on that, I'll make a motion to approve the nomination of Counselor Choi to the Boone County Solid Waste Management District Board. Second from Counselor Trailer. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Very good. The appointment is approved with a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Thanks, Counselor Choi. Appreciate that. Next, we've got the Zionsville Historic Preservation Committee presentation by Mr. Walters, Mr. Mark Walters, or whoever else you'd like to bring up with you as well.
See what happens.
Fingers crossed. Oh, I see something up there.
Alex, can you help me get this switched to this? Oh, there it is.
There we go. Technology working.
It's good to have someone who knows how to.
That's right.
Thank you very much. My name is Mark Walters. I live at 545 West Poplar Street in Zionsville. And I am honored to be the chairman of the Zionsville Historic Preservation Committee. We've been together now almost 2 years, and it's been a lot of hard work and a lot of dedicated people, which is much appreciated. I do want to say at the outset that I really appreciate Mr. Jones's comments and willingness to come up and talk about this. As we have with so many others, we would be happy to meet with you and discuss each one of your issues. I think we have a position on all of those that you might be interested in. I can't really address them tonight because I didn't know what they were, but we would be happy to get together and talk with you and anyone else on the BZA without. So just to kick this off, I'm condensing a presentation that was actually much longer, that we've given it a number of public meetings because of time constraints. And I'm going to probably go pretty fast. So I apologize for that in advance. But again, more than happy to meet with any of you afterwards or at any time to go into more detail or discuss this. It's opportune that we have this opportunity to meet and talk through this because it appears very recently, actually, there's been a lot of information sort of disseminated that isn't always accurate. And there's a lot of misperceptions about this. And we want to make sure, and we have tried to make sure throughout this whole process, we're as transparent as possible and communicating to the best of our ability what we think this is and how it will impact others in the village. From the outset, we viewed this as the village area being an asset that Zionsville can leverage and be proud of and protect. It's a special place. It makes us very unique to other towns and cities in the area and around us. And we believe that it should be viewed as an asset. Real quickly, the members of the committee, obviously myself, I won't go through everyone except to say you'll probably recognize a lot of these names. A lot of these folks have given a lot of time, effort, and money for this effort, as well as other things in the community. I did want to point out that we have two outside organizations working with us. Indiana Landmarks, which has been an enormous help, helping us through some technical issues, as well as Meg Pernsley, who is in charge of the Indianapolis Preservation Commission. She's been a huge help in giving us good data on the process of running a conservation district. So thanks to all of those folks. So why now? Why are we doing this now? We believe that the town of Zionsville is at a critical juncture. That happens in communities from time to time. And we think, this is one of those junctures where 25, 40 years from now, people will look back and say, boy, I'm glad those decisions were made when they were made. There's currently no protection afforded any of the historic homes in the village. All that's really required is a demolition permit to tear those homes down. Many new structures are not compatible, certainly not all, and I want to make that clear. There's a number of new homes that have been constructed in the village that are great. I actually have some examples here to show you. But there's also some that just don't meet the guidelines of the comprehensive plan. If you have to point to something and say, where did it go off? Many homeowners are worried. We've talked to many, face-to-face and otherwise, about the town losing its unique historic heritage. We are not anti-development. We are not anti-growth. We understand the importance of it, but we believe that the village needs to be proactive in protecting its historic heritage at this point in time. We have a very limited inventory of historic homes. Losing these homes forever can change one of the things that makes our community the most attractive. We're actually behind in our preservation efforts. As you can see, virtually every community around us has some level of historic preservation already in place. Carmel, for instance, has had something in place since 2011, so quite some time. The city of Indianapolis has 17 unique historic and conservation districts in Marion County. So we talk about an asset. What's the value of the asset? There are many studies on the what preservation can do for a community. There are many studies. This particular one was given to us by Indiana Landmarks. I won't read all of it, but basically the net of the study says preservation can be used as a tool to help strengthen communities, including business incubation, sustainable development, job creation, promotion of art and culture, town renewal, heritage tourism, economic development, and many others. I don't think there's any of these that we're not striving for right now in Zionsville. So what is a conservation district? Many of you may have heard of a historic district. This differs from a historic district. A conservation district is less restricted than a historic district. It only reviews new construction or the demolition of historic structures. It does not dictate architectural styles. It focuses on the compatibility of the new construction with neighboring structures. So it impacts the demolition of any building that's designated as a historic structure in the Indiana Historic Sites and Structure Inventory Report. If you're not familiar with this report, it's available at the Sullivan Months. It was commissioned in Zionsville in 1983, and it basically has an inventory of all the historic homes in the village of Zionsville. They're categorized as outstanding, notable, contributing, and non-contributing in the interim report. We are only focused on those that are listed as outstanding, notable, and contributing relative to demolition of the structures. Any new construction of a principal building or structure that's subject to view from a public way would also come under the auspices of the commission for a review of the plans, the architectural plans. Construction of any addition to an existing structure that's historic and listed as outstanding, notable, or contributing. The moving of any building in the village. And renovations of additions to non-historic homes are not subject to commission review. This has been the source of a lot of confusion and misunderstanding. If you have a more modern home, it is not subject to any restrictions for renovation or additions. And that's an important differentiating point. It's only historic structures that we're talking about reviewing. So this is an example of an outstanding historic structure in the village. This is one that's notable that you might recognize. This would be considered a contributing structure. This would be considered a non-contributing structure and not subject to any review by the Conservation Commission. This is an example that all historic homes can't be saved. Our goal is to be reasonable. That's the key to success with any kind of effort like this, is reasonableness. A structure like this, even though it's historic, it was one of the first structures in Zionsville in 1850, is obviously beyond anything that could be done to it reasonably for a reasonable economic amount of money. Therefore, it would not have been there would have been no issue in granting a demolition for this particular structure. In fact, it's already been demolished. So you say, okay, you're looking at new construction. What kind of new construction is okay? Here are some diverse examples of architecture that I wanted to show. All of these structures, in the committee's opinion, would be approved for building in the village as new construction. Upper left, it's a Cape Cod style, but it's a perfect fit for the location it's in and the homes nearby. To the upper right, this home was built about 4 years ago. It's a wonderful fit on the streetscape. There are many other homes similar to it. It just looks wonderful. It's a beautiful home. The one on the lower right might surprise you. It's a very modern home, absolutely beautiful. It fits where it was built. It backs up to the trail. There are other newer homes nearby. There are no real historic homes anywhere on the street next to it or down the street. And the way it's built, the architecture, it looks really nice and is a real asset to the village environment. So that wouldn't have been a problem at all to be approved. On the lower left, you see a historic home where there's a significant addition going in. The architect of this structure actually came to us with plans and said, do you guys have any comments or thoughts about this? We offered some suggestions and ideas, which were actually adopted by the architect. He took it to the owners, they agreed, and this structure will soon be built on 2nd Street. So that's the kind of thing we like to see happen. And I think if we get a commission in place, we would see more and more of that. A commission's job isn't just to say yes or no, it's to provide guidance and assistance as people are moving into the village or making changes. So what have we done? When we started this effort, all of us said, if there isn't significant support from the people in the village, we don't want to waste the time and try to move this forward. So we set out to try and touch every single resident in the village who would be potentially impacted by this. We did that in this way. Public meetings held at the Sullivan Munts, Library and Town Hall. We did door-to-door canvassing. We had block captains who went to the doors. If the people weren't home, we handed them flyers. Everybody got flyers in their mailbox. And then we mailed a survey to everyone. We also made it available online that basically asked a series of 10 questions relative to the establishment of a conservation district. You should have that in your packets, a copy of what that looked like. We got the responses back. For those who did not respond, we followed up again with them, sometimes with an emailer or a mailing, and also follow-up phone calls in many cases. So we really worked hard to try to touch everything. These are examples of the documents. The surveys on the left, it was also available online. The invitation to the meeting at Town Hall, an example of the invite. The actual information card that everybody got in their mailbox is on the lower right. So the survey results I want to show you, and again, I'll have to kind of go through it in a hurry, but this information is available on our website. So all you have to do is go out to our website, click on the icon where it says survey results, and you can look in detail at those results. It's important to note, only village property owners were sent the survey, not renters. We took the time to really research every property to understand who owned it versus who lives there. And we felt that was important. Also important to note, the Village Residents Association, after canvassing their membership, is in full support of a conservation district. So, one sec. What we did, this is a little overview for folks who go online and look at it. What we did was we took the data and we converted it into a heat map. What you see here is a map of the village. I think you can see that pretty well. All of the green blobs or blurbs represent addresses where people said, yes, we are interested in our property in the town of Zionsville having a conservation district. The areas in red are areas where there were addresses for those folks who said no, they were opposed to the conservation district. We sent out 413 surveys, which represented, from our research, pretty much every address that we felt would be impacted by the conservation district. We got 207 back return surveys, which, if you know anything about survey mailers without incentives, getting that many back was pretty extraordinary. We made a lot of effort to try to get people to have an opportunity to tell us what they thought about this. So a response rate of 50% was excellent. 81% of the respondents said they wanted their property protected by a conservation district. 83% said they would like a conservation district for the entire village, not just their properties. So if you go out to the site, you can go down and look at each question and the response. and we've kind of sliced and diced it in various ways to look at. So that is available to everyone.
Mark, what's the website?
Pardon?
What is the website domain or URL?
It should be, hold on, I'll show you.
Preservatio.com.
There it is, right
Yeah,
there.
there we go. Okay.
Preserve Zionsville.
So folks know.
By the way, this presentation I will make available to all of you as soon as we're done. No problem at all. Okay, so we believe a conservation district is a solution. It would limit or end some of the divisiveness, hopefully all of the divisiveness that comes with tearing down historic properties. There's been some of that in recent years. When historic properties have been demolished in the village, it causes a lot of anxiety and problems. We'd like to see that avoided. It would provide homeowners an assurance that new construction would be appropriate and add to the streetscape, not detract from it, and potentially impact their home values, quality of life, etc. Also, and this to me is one of the most important things, a conservation district would instill a sense of pride, not just for homeowners in the village, but for all of Zionsville. We live in a very special place. The village makes us very special. People are very proud of it, whether they live in the village or they live in some of our great neighborhoods that surround the village. Having enough pride in what we have here and understanding its value enough to protect it, I believe, and I think a lot of people believe, is a source of pride for everyone who lives in and calls Zionsville home. So some questions have come up, trying to be a little proactive to address them. Property rights continues to be an issue with folks. We get that. I'm very sensitive to people's property rights, and they certainly, particularly in this country, it's a very big deal. However, our research says by the law, property rights do not necessarily supersede community rights. Responsible regulation for the betterment of the community can take precedent over individual property rights. So in other words, if you're doing something that you think overall benefits the community, it can supersede individual property rights. Another example, admittedly an extreme one, regarding property rights is someone with a lot of money comes along and says, I'm going to buy up 7 houses on Main Street and I'm going to tear them all down and build what I want to build within the zoning. I personally don't think that would sit too well, but it is a possibility in Zionsville right now. That could happen. So, you know, I think property rights are good to a point, but I also think you need to be sensitive to the neighbors and all those impacted when a historic home is torn down or someone builds a structure in the neighborhood that just isn't compatible with the other architecture. There's been some talk about, well, we want 100% of the people in the village to agree to this before we do it. I don't know of any ordinance that the town council's ever entertained that had 100% approval. If there has been, I'd like to understand how you accomplish that. Maybe we could take some notes and try that, but I just don't think we're going to get every single person to agree to this. However, I think a strong majority do, and that typically carries a lot of weight when you make a decision about something like this. Another point that has been made and is wrong is that this ordinance impacts interiors of people's homes, construction material, and paint colors. It does not impact any of those things, period. We have said that in the ordinance, and this is very different from a historic district, which does address some of those issues. The conservation district does not. Non-historic structure oversight. This was another issue. Well, wait, this is going to affect every structure in the village of Zionsville. With the exception of new construction of a building, remodeling or additions to non-historic structures are not subject to any restrictions. And that's very important because a lot of people have said, oh, I don't live in a real historic home, and I want to do a big remodel, and I got to go up before this commission to get this approved. No, we do not. So I thought this might be a few items of interest to the council. The ordinance is based on the Indiana State Preservation Statute. The design guidelines will be approved by the town council. The district will not become official until the district boundary map is submitted by the commission and approved by the town council. An updated interim report, that's that report I mentioned that we're going to use as kind of the baseline as to what's historic, is in the process of being updated from the 1983 version. It should be noted the commission will be responsible for enforcing the ordinance and processing all approval requests, as well as I said earlier, providing guidance to property owners contemplating construction. There may be some need for technical assistance by the town staff. We've had some conversations with Wayne and others, but depending on the composition of the commission, with the experts that the commission should have on it, we see the need for a lot of staff involvement to be minimal, but we're exploring that right now. And finally, and maybe most importantly to the commissioners or to the counselors, is the Conservation District ordinance is subject to the same termination restrictions as all other town of Zionsville ordinances. So if things are coming off the rails on this thing, and we've got a lot of people upset and concerned about it, the town council has some options as to what to do. And we think that's a pretty important point. And I'm getting to the close here. The commission formation, this is basically how the commission looks. 7 members, 2 members appointed by town council that should serve as non-voting members. This is all voluntary. There's no money paid to any of the commission members. We would like to see 6 members be residents within the conservation district. We think that makes sense. It may not be feasible depending on the expertise we need, such as architecture, engineering, but that's certainly a goal that we would have. And finally, we want the commissioners with the disciplines to be able to provide that level of guidance and give assurance to people that we have expertise in this area, not just some random people who make arbitrary decisions. We think that's extremely important. So how the commission is populated and the expertise on the commission is going to determine in some ways how successful it ends up being. So I'm sorry to rush like I did. And I'm not used to talking with a mask on, but hopefully you took that in, and I'm more than happy to answer questions if there's time.
No, yep, no, there's time, and again, there's no vote today. This is just a presentation. Questions? I know Councilor Culp, you've been leading the charge here. Anything you want to add, or anything?
Yeah, I just want to say
with?
to Mark, great job, and the rest of the group that we've all been working really hard. There's been a lot of due diligence from this group to make sure that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's and talking to everybody that we can. Larry, you were actually on my list to talk to before tonight, so that's my fault. So I apologize. So I think this is really important. As some of you have read my bio or know my background, my kids are 3rd generation at Eagle when they attended their Z West now. The town means a lot to me. As Vice President Plunkett, I've been working on the Night on the Bricks this year. These are 2 really big competitive advantages for our town, the Brick Street and the homes. And so I think this is really critical. We have worked really hard with the mayor and President Garrett to make sure that we are including all the things that maybe were in question in the past, that when this was brought forth. I think the one piece of it that's, I guess, a game changer for me is the ability that the 7 counselors can just eliminate this at some point if it does go off the rails. I don't feel like it will. I think once everybody sees the ordinance and understands the, I guess, ability to be flexible, that it'll make more sense. I think it's something that we all really need to think about, because this is critical for the future of the village as we grow and maintain our competitive advantage compared to, I mean, you can go build Carmel Main Street if you want, but it's not going to be the same. It's just not. So that's all I have to say. But this is the time to really beat up Mark here. So please, this is a critical, very important, and I would hope that you guys take this, as seriously as you have everything else that you do. And please, beat Mark up all you can, because we'll try to answer those as best we can.
Before you beat me up, I do want to say how helpful Joe has been to our committee. Josh appointed Joe to kind of be our liaison to council, and he's just been such a great supporter and full of good counsel and advice, and it's been very much appreciated, Joe.
Thank you.
Before we open it up, I know Heather, you've also been helping with this from
Yes,
a
Heather-
legal standpoint. Is there anything you'd add to
Yeah,
what
I would.
Joe said?
First, I want to just commend the group and share kind of echoing Counselor Culp's comments. They have been working so hard. I know Chelsea, Mark, John, all of you have been putting lots of hours in. And I think Mark Walters and I had our first conversation almost 3 years ago, Mark.
Yeah, a long time.
So it is not something that they've done quickly. I think there's been a lot of very deliberate conversations, and Joe and I think we were in a room pre-COVID. To give some context, I think our first meeting with all of you was more than a year and a half ago. So I know have been putting together kind of reviewing the materials that this working group has prepared, making sure that the ordinance not only meets the form and function of Indiana state statute, but also helping kind of think through some of the questions candidly that Mr. Jones brought up in terms of the Plan Commission and the BZA and just all of those different aspects. So as the council is considering this, and I know it's my understanding leadership's not intending to sort of rush this along, I would welcome any of you to reach out to me if you have questions. I'm happy to share copies of the draft ordinance. We're going to share those with the mayor's legal team as well. I mean, I know Mark and the team, Chelsea, John, and others really do want to find the biggest amount of consensus before bringing something before the full council. So I personally just wanted to let the council members know how hard everyone's been working. I know Joe Culp has been working extremely hard on this, but if you want to talk one-on-one, I'd be happy to kind of go through what the statute says and some of the guardrails, I think, to address Mr. Jones' comments that the statute provides, in making sure that this is not an unwieldy operation that makes it difficult to live and build and enjoy new homes in Zionsville as well, which I know has been a concern. So I just wanted to share those thoughts.
Well, and I think, Mark, I appreciate your comment there. If you're able to meet with Larry and Heather, if you're able to join as well, I mean, my ears perk up a little bit when I hear sort of there's a potential for a lawsuit. And I'm sure we thought through it, but I know Larry had more good points than kind of timing allowed. So I think being able to have that conversation and get that perspective would be very helpful.
I would say any of the Plan Commission members, but I know Mr. Jones, so we've worked together in the past. Happy to talk one-on-one as well.
So with that framework, councilors, questions you may have for Mark or the committee in general?
The particular upside on this versus an HOA for the area?
Upside.
I should say, why go?
Yeah, so an HOA is very different than a conservation district. HOA is actually more restricted in many ways. Obviously, if you live in a neighborhood with an HOA, chances of you tearing a house down and building something new are probably pretty slim. There's pretty tight restrictions around that sort of thing. Almost what kind of mailbox do you have and so forth and so on. So, you know, that's been talked about actually, would an HOA make sense? Our research and talking with Indiana Landmarks, they basically said an HOA is just not really an option. One reason is, if I recall, if you impose an HOA where you have to pay dues, you have an elected board. An elected board can consist of anybody. It doesn't necessarily have to be even preservation-minded people. So potentially there exists a problem or a conflict that someone who's not really in favor of this can sort of stuff the board with people, you know, that aren't preservation-minded and they don't execute their job very well. You know, that's part of the problem. There's some other, I think, legal issues in imposing something that someone has to pay a fee on. A number of mortgage holders would have to go to their banks and get approval from the lender to be able to be subject to an HOA. That was one of the stipulations I recall we were told. So that obviously would be not just an inconvenience to many, but probably not doable. So yeah, we really don't see the two being compatible in most ways.
I just want to add to that, HOA would include every single house in the village too.
Correct.
This is just to preserve the historic homes. So I think that would be kind of the biggest differentiator for me. But
Well, that's why it's more restrictive. I mean, it applies to every single property, not just historic properties or new properties that are built. It's everything that's there now. It's subject to the HOA. Thanks, Joe.
Hey, Mark, I have a couple questions. Thanks for your hard work, Joe. Thanks for your hard work. And really your approach to this, I think, has been pretty diplomatic. According to the 83 inventory report, off the top of your head, you know, how many homes would qualify in the district that would be designated? You know?
Yes. Give me 1 second. Darn it. I thought I had a slide on that, but I might have taken it out. Oh, no.
we did have that in, or they had that in the
I
original.
have a
It's
slide.
80
I have a slide that is a
83.
breakdown
83.
of the interim report. As I recall, there were about 400. You recall, Chelsea?
I think 47%. I recall. So
47% of the homes in the village are in the inventory considered historic. We can get you those numbers.
Yeah, Heather just said 80 some. So I'm just gonna get a sense of that.
Sure.
So obviously those are the ones this mostly applies to. New construction, again, there aren't that many vacant lots
No.
really to talk about. So you're probably talking about demoing something. My other question really is just, and I get the popularity of probably folks feeling relieved that it doesn't apply to existing homes, but why not? I could own a current home and go crazy and do something that's offensive. So why? I'm just curious.
Because we're really tired.
Politically
And that's a
expedient.
whole nother thing.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
You know what I mean? We're trying to be as successful as we can in getting this passed.
Yeah.
And, you know, if we added that into the mix, I just think it adds a level of complexity. It's the same reason we didn't include the commercial district.
Yeah, I was gonna say that
It's
too.
a
Yeah.
whole nother animal that we would have to tackle in a different way. I don't mean to be flippant about it.
No, I'm just, you know.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
Lastly, probably, you mentioned that, you know, didn't include paint. And I mean, I've heard a lot of folks have contacted me. They feel like, you know, some of those are the more simple changes that they want to have some real autonomy to make those choices. But on page, on one of these, number 7, under what factors considered, it does say relationship of materials, texture, and color. Page 4, the relationship of the materials, texture, and color of the facade of the building must be visually compatible with the predominant materials used in the buildings of which it is visually related.
Yeah.
So does that not include then those color and material?
No, I mean, what it's really saying there is if the homes in the area where the new construction is taking place are more or less painted with traditional colors, somebody wants to come along and paint their house purple, they would have to get it approved and in the review. Chances are it's not going to be an issue because we don't want paint to be considered, period.
Yeah.
Okay, and we may, I don't know if the state statute would allow us to just scratch that off. But I certainly don't have a problem with it. Paint is not an issue. I love the different colors we have in the village, and even the purple ones.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a paint house now up on Hawthorne or something. So yeah, that's not a problem.
An earlier comment was that folks would have to hire specific architecture engineers that might limit. Is that, I didn't see that in here. Is that true?
I'm having a hard time hearing. I don't fully understand what is being asked there. Most people who are building something, will hire someone to develop their plans. They don't just build it from memory. So they're going to have to hire an architect or a contractor or a builder.
Hey, Mark, can you get in front of the microphone just so our online folks can hear you too? Thank you.
Yep,
Sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry. I'm the one said I couldn't hear. So when
You're just pointing out that whomever they hire, you may work with them to negotiate the example you gave. It wasn't that they had to specifically hire specific preservationist architects or something like that. Is that correct?
No, exactly.
Okay.
No, they do not. They hire who they feel would be the best, and hopefully they come to us and our architects work with their architect to make it happen. There's nothing in the ordinance that says you must even hire an architect, really. The only thing I would say, to be completely transparent about it, is if someone was contemplating tearing down a historic home, they might need to get an appraisal on the house. Because that's something that the commission would be interested in seeing. What's the value of this historic home now? And what would it potentially be later if it was rehabbed or added onto or whatever? That could be an expense that potentially would not be there before. But again, I think that is a bit of most people would get an appraisal anyway. They would need it to buy it. So I don't see that as a huge burden, but it is a possibility.
Mark, my last question, I would only ask it publicly because I think it's good for everyone to hear these answers. I believe when we chatted once before, there was something in Indiana code where these bodies automatically become historic districts upon some period of time if it's not reassessed by the town. Could you address that?
That's gone.
Okay.
But Heather can address that, but we've successfully managed to keep within the statute, but that provision is not enforced.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would just add, there's a number of provisions, couple different things, and maybe to back up. So the statute that we're working in is Indiana Historic Preservation Commission statute. And I think a lot of folks, when they think about that, they think of Indianapolis, which has a much more onerous historic preservation ordinance and structure. And so what we've tried to do in reviewing what this group has put together is really scale that back to make it a conservation district, and then put more specific guardrails around that. to make sure that it's very limited in scope. And so a few things that we've worked on with Counselor Culp is one, really identifying and narrowing the area in which we're talking about, making sure that we have a conservation district just to maintain and like surround the village itself, that we're not including everyone in the town of Zionsville, even if they have a historic structure. So we're really focusing in on one area. And we're keeping it as a conservation district versus some of the more onerous requirements that you might find with a traditional historic preservation district that really are more specific in some of the things I think that Mr. Jones alluded to. So we've tried to scale it back and really focus and narrow kind of the intent. So some of the provisions, Councilor Burke, that you were just talking about, there may provisions in Indiana state statute, and we have not intentionally included them in the draft that we're working on. But again, this is still just a working draft. We haven't gotten to the point of finalizing it, just to hear comments and to give the council and the public time to digest it and be able to discuss any additional revisions. But that's sort of what we're working with in terms of a framework.
Awesome. Thank you for answering this question.
One thing that I did not, and thank you for being here. We've
Sure.
had conversations before, and so appreciate the work of all of you involved. One thing that that I'm assuming is that when homeowners when people purchase these homes, that they will be told in a disclosure somehow whether they have a historic home or not.
Absolutely.
And then one other thing that I think may kind of help me decide on this is if instead of just passing this outright as an ordinance, that we have a sunset provision, consider a sunset provision to it, in that if it's always hard to get rid of something when something is installed in, but if you have to fight to keep it later on, then you make sure that everything is functioning as well as possible. So not to say that basically to say whether it's 10 years, 15, 20 years or longer, that at some point we reevaluate this ordinance and make sure everything's functioning instead of just leaving it up to chance that somebody might not like it and put up a big stink about it later on, but that we have a period of time after which we reevaluate everything going on and saying whether or not this ordinance is worth keeping.
We've talked about this at length. One idea could be that I believe we've got a 3-year timetable right now for the ordinance to be effective for 3 years. And the commission members, rotate in and out on a staggered basis. One thing we could do is we're coming up on that 3rd year, say 60 days out before the end of the 3rd year, the commission, there's some kind of language that says the commission needs to present the council with an analysis of what's happened over the last 2.34 years. How many issues were there? How many COAs were processed? How many people wrote nasty letters, whatever. And present that to council for some review and decide, where things are. I mean, I just kind of came up with that off the top of my head, but I think something like that would be reasonable.
Yeah, and I'm not saying after 10 years you get rid of it, but it puts the onus on the preservation committee to make sure that they prove their worth and their value to the community, and that it's not an automatic rubber stamp that they'll continue to infinitum.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I like the idea of having to put a report together and come to council because it makes sure that the commission members know they're going to have to put a report card out there. So, yeah.
That's good. Mark, is this focused on exterior only, meaning if I have a historic home and want to put in an ultra modern kitchen that has no impact on the exterior of the building, this has nothing to do with that change? It's only if I wanted to put a
It's
big
really-
addition on the back of it or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't hear 100%. I don't want to make sure.
If you're gonna speak, yeah, you
Yeah,
just
come
gotta come on up and just identify yourself, Chelsea, just so for the record.
I didn't hear everything you said, Josh, and I want to make sure that I
Yeah.
didn't misspeak.
Chelsea Overbeck. Do I have to say my address?
It's helpful, please.
40 North Main Street,
Thanks.
Zionsville, Indiana. So Josh addressed the question about do interiors, are they included in the ordinance in any way? They are absolutely not. Your interior of your home is completely yours to do as you please. This only affects exteriors that are visible from a public way. So even when you say I wanted to do an addition on the back of my house, that also could potentially not be affected by this. If you can't see it from a public way, it's not within the ordinance. Alleys are not considered public ways for the purposes of this ordinance specifically. I have a few other things, if you guys want me to, that you had asked earlier that I had the answers to.
Yeah, please.
Mr. Burke, I believe you asked how many homes were included in the 1983 interim report. 390 homes were considered historic. Of those, 129 were non-contributing. We are not doing anything with non-contributing homes in regards to this ordinance. So we would have only had 261 homes that would have been under the purview. Those would have been an outstanding, notable, contributing historic homes. That was 40 years ago. It's going to be different. That's a 40-year-old report that stopped at what was historic 40 years ago. A lot of changes have happened. Houses have been altered. Some that were historic will no longer be historic. Some that were historic in this report are long gone. A lot have been demolished since then. New homes would be considered historic that were not then. So, homes from the 40s would be included and they weren't in that original report, just for reference of how the numbers will change. As Mark said, we are updating that inventory. So we should have that here, not shortly.
Hopefully soon. We have a person a professional who is willing to do it for a reasonable amount of money. So we're trying to raise the funds and get that done.
Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chelsea. That's helpful.
I got one more.
Nope.
To go way, way, way back, the
Yeah.
HOA thing. One of the reasons we had to just disqualify that immediately is HOAs actually go with your title, your deed. They're covenants and restrictions that are on your mortgage and they do follow with your deed. I cannot just update my deed that's been around since 1800. I can't just add these covenants and restrictions to my actual mortgage or deed. And we did ask a real estate attorney about that for guidance as to if that was even feasible and possible to do with the way an HOA works. And they said they didn't see any legal standing that you could add covenants and restrictions to a deed or a mortgage.
Without getting approval from the mortgage holder. That was your answer was much more articulate than mine. That's what I was trying to say.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Yep. This is the quality of people on the committee. Just saying.
Councilors, any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just want to reaffirm that this is new construction and demolition houses only. This commission is not going to actively chase owners with historic homes that are degrading. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. Is there a plan in the future that might offer some assistance to homes like that? I spoke with some residents today, some of which have lived in Zionsville themselves for 50 years. And it's a concern of mine for some of these residents that are aging in place and they want to maybe install a ramp to get up to their house. It's a historic home. Is that something they're going to have to come to you as well for ADA ramp installation or items such as that?
Yeah, I would say that's totally exempt from that. That's not really considered significant construction, I would not think. I'll double check with Heather, but health and safety type additions to a home, I don't think that would be subject to the.
Heather, do you have any feedback on that? Because
Yeah.
You've lived in a more restricted area.
I have. I've lived in multiple neighborhoods under the Indianapolis Historic Preservation Commission. So yes, much more restrictive. I don't think we specifically addressed that in the ordinance, and I did make a note of that, Commissioner or Councilor Melton, because I do think it's probably important to put some language in there to be certain that any sort of health and safety or ADA compliance, issue be given some sort of deemed status of a COA, which the statute does not prohibit that from happening. And I can take a look at what some of the surrounding communities have done. I know you all can do that as well. Because I'm certain this isn't the first time that's been addressed, but we don't have anything specifically in the working draft. So I think that's an excellent point.
Your point about, is there assistance? I believe that there are grants available if people, if their historic home is, starting to get run down and they want to do some, and working with Indiana Landmarks, they are the folks who know where to go for those kinds of things. And that would be, in my view, something the commission would be interested in exploring with homeowners of historic homes once it's established. I think that would be wonderful if we could find ways to assist in renovation of historic homes.
Yeah, I think that's pretty important if we're going to put this cloak onto these homes in the area, that we at least be sure to inform everybody as much as possible with options of the restoration funding, if it's available. If it's not, then obviously some of the options are to sell the home and move out of Zionsville in that case. But I guess we talked about mortgages and things of that nature earlier. And, as a contractor, I've dealt with certain situations where sometimes the mortgage company doesn't see the value in the real estate or the structure to loan the owners the money to make a repair. Therefore, that cost can sometimes be more exorbitant than actually tearing it down and then rebuilding new. So I just am concerned from those perspectives. Is, I feel like we're putting this cloak on this area, but yet we don't know every situation that every homeowner has experienced with their property. Again, this one of the families I talked to today who have lived in Zionsville with their family since their family owned the home since 1920, and they've lived in the house for 50 years. I'm just concerned that we're putting a burden on people potentially with regards to their options with their real estate, whether it's degrading to the point where the cost doesn't make sense. And you offered to have somebody do an appraisal, or you're saying that these homeowners need to bring an appraisal to you as the commission. I just feel like that's a burden that is something that I think we should consider pretty heavily, because that's, I don't know how much an appraisal costs, but 350, thank you. Yeah, so I mean, again, just extra costs and just thoughts that we really need to kind of hash out and decide if those are going to be things that we're okay adding to the community cost.
No, I appreciate that. I think, the thing is, well, two things. One, reasonableness is part of the deal. I mean, someone sits down and says, look, here's my situation. That has to be taken into account. But also, if someone lives in a home and it's extremely run down and there's a lot of issues with it, cracked foundation, whatever, plaster falling off, it's in really bad shape. And it's gotten that way over the years. And they want to do some sort of evaluation of, is it more expensive to restore it? And then if I sold it, would I get that money back that I put into it and then some, a profit? Or is it cheaper to tear it down and build new? That's the equation that the district looks at, the commission looks at. That's the equation. So if they're doing that anyway, they're going to be getting an appraisal. They're going to try to figure out economically, does it make sense to either tear it down and rebuild or go to all the expense to fix it and renovate it?
I understand your point there, Mark. I guess I appreciate, you guys making it an idea of the commission assessing the financial values, but I just don't think that I'm going to continue to read into this and look into it. I'm excited that we have an option, and thank you for your work on this and all of you as well. I don't want to be bashing that. That's not what I'm doing, but I guess from the financial wherewithal that the commission's eyes put on it versus what the actual homeowner can afford to do, or what's in their best interest, and or their family that may inherit the house in the future as well. So that, I just want to make sure that we kind of look at all these aspects and the cost that it will cost the town as well. So you mentioned earlier, you had some conversations with Wayne DeLong, is that correct? So amongst those conversations, there was potential additional cost to have this commission, is that correct?
No, I mean, someone's saying that. We really haven't done, it's very difficult to do a detailed analysis of what the cost would be because the town doesn't necessarily break it down by line item. It's by staff. There may be some staff time, a person like Wayne, for instance. I know Wayne, for instance, is a member of the Architectural Review Committee. He sits on that committee. So there may be times when we need Wayne's expertise because he's got a lot of it. Or, you know, potentially some legal expertise if there happens to be a big legal question out there. Other than that, in terms of administrating the commission, there would be the standard agenda put together that would have to go out, minutes sent out publicly, those kinds of things that are pretty much already done for all the other commissions. I don't know how to put a dollar sign on that side of it. But as I said earlier, the composition of the commission is key to how much other work would need to be done by the town staff. And if we get the right commission in place with the right expertise, we do not believe there would be an undue amount of expense that the town would incur in administering a district like this or a commission.
And how do you expect to find the right commission? Is it, I saw 2 appointments by the council and then it looked like 7 total with 6 living in the town of Zionsville or this district. I guess, you know, it sounds like volunteerism is obviously, you know, alive and well here in Zionsville, but I just, you know, volunteerism by the right people. That seems kind of, I don't know. I'm a little concerned about the right people for it and how do we get there and how long are they going to be there? How long are they going to be interested in serving? Is there term limits, et cetera?
Right. I mean, I understand. I will just tell you that there are conservation and historic preservation districts all over. All of them, based on the state statute, are volunteers.
Okay.
Now, does that mean some places don't have expense? Yes. Carmel pays out, it has some budget item, some budget number for their commission, but they have an outside group managing it because they got lots of money, I guess. And yeah, we're going to have to be very, you know, diligent. We've already started the process. We've interviewed and talked with a number of architects that actually live in the village. Builders, we've had some discussions with, sort of setting the stage for potentially, if this passes, you know, soliciting those people to be on the commission. We've started that process.
I think I'd be interested in seeing what the potential cost would be from having the commission. If you guys could bring that again at another later time, you can email it to me. But also what it would potentially cost, say we don't have any volunteerism for some reason, what it would be potentially to bring that service to Zionsville as an outside party.
That we can definitely do.
Thank you.
Mark, I just, I won't spend too much time on this. I appreciate the update on the numbers. I'd like to, when the commission gets finished or when the report gets finished, I'd like to understand how many new homes were added to that and whatnot. I guess my question is just for me, it comes down to how much do we want government involved, right? And you've got 7 counselors up here, and none of us live in this district that you're talking about, in this particular part. And even admittedly, some of these people that would be on your commission could potentially be from outside of the community, not even just outside of the village itself. I'm just wondering if this isn't something that can't be done through an architect review board through the VRA, or something that can be, I mean, we all have architect review boards in our neighborhoods. I can't do things to my house unless it's approved. I'm just wondering, my problem is I'm just wondering how much we want government involved in telling people what they can and can't do to their house. And whether or not it can be done through the VRA, through an architect review board or a committee like that.
Well, you're kind of asking the wrong guy, because I firmly believe we do want that.
Yeah.
And we need it. I don't believe it's onerous government oversight if it's managed properly. But many districts and areas around the country have instituted these preservation districts to great success. There are always concerns about, I don't want another government entity telling me what I can and can't do. We have tried in working through this ordinance to be as non-intrusive as possible, because believe me, some of the other historic district ordinances are much stricter than this one. We've tried to make it very reasonable to where there's an out if things aren't going well. The council has the option of, terminating the ordinance. We want to get a strong commission in place that will actually helps people, provides guidance versus just yay or nay on things. And ultimately, you have to decide, is this worth? Is it worth it to protect the town and the historic heritage that we have? And I don't think it can be done by the VRA or the Architectural Review Committee, which is totally not focused on residential. It's only commercial. And my understanding is they basically give out money.
No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about, like, our neighborhood has an architect review board.
You have an HOA, right?
Yeah, we have an
And
HOA.
the VRA,
Part of the HOA.
but the VRA is not an HOA, right? So they wouldn't be able legally to do this.
Yeah, and I would say that.
That's the difference.
Your neighborhood's protected by an HOA, which functions as a pseudo government entity. And what the village is asking for is something that is less restrictive than that and is protective of the village in the same sense that an HOA would, but much less restrictive than that. I lived in the village for 8 years. I was at 230 North Main Street. Yeah.
Old neighbors.
Yeah. So this is a fascinating conversation for me. And like I said, I think that you've done a lot of great work around it. When I first heard about this, I thought I was a little hesitant to really provide any support around it, but you've done due diligence around it and have really answered a lot of difficult questions. And like I said, what'll kind of get me over the hurdle is consideration of a sunset provision. Maybe even just a one-time sunset provision that you don't have to come back every 10 years, but let's reevaluate it at a certain point to make sure you are adding value to this area without creating too much distraction and detraction.
Fair enough.
Hey, Mark, can you go back to the slide that lists all the counties or all the towns around us that already have this?
Yep.
So I would take a look at this, guys. You think it's important? Have you seen the home values go up in these areas? And I would say we're more historical than they are. And we don't even want to think about this.
Well, I think we are thinking about this, Joe. That's
No,
the point.
no. I don't mean it that way. I'm just like, this is important.
That's the whole point of the
This is-
dialogue.
Yeah. This is important. Darn it, come on. No, but this is important, and someone else has gotten to us a lot sooner. And the thing that attracts people to this town, the home values, I think it was Wayne that sent me this report the other day, and I can share it. It's like how much home values go up when you create a conservation district. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure that the square footage per price in the village is probably the highest in the state. We don't want that to go the wrong way. You know,
I can tell you how much mine was.
Yeah. So,
when I lived there, it was pretty steep.
so I guess my point is I appreciate all your guys' pushback on this because we need it. But I want this slide to really hit home to everybody because I feel like our town is even more important than these.
I think your point's well taken. This is, when I campaigned for this position, there were a couple things I talked about which define Zionsville. One is the school system and the other is the homes and stores in the village. And that's kind of what we're known for. And I think this being one of the characteristics of that, we want to make sure that we preserve that to the best degree we can.
I agree.
Yeah, and to my point is just simply this dialogue has to happen because once this bell's rung, you can't unring it. Unless, to Alex's point, you allow a sunset provision.
Well, no, in the ordinance itself, we can also vote it like the next month if we decide, nope, this is not what we want. We can do that too as well.
We can get rid of it at any time.
Yeah, that won't happen.
That's going to be.
That's fair.
And to your point, Brian, is why I would put in an automatic sunset provision that you have to come back.
You have to take an action.
You have to reevaluate it.
Because you put things in and say, because 20 years down the road, there's going to be 7 other guys sitting on this
or gals
council.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to hear about that one, but that was not at all how that was intended.
That was Brian Traylor, everyone.
Former vice president.
All right, so there's going to be, who knows who's sitting on this council in 20 years. And they're not going to have any idea that they can go back and do away with this commission. It's just going to coast at that point. And I think what you all are trying to accomplish is great. I will be supportive as the neighbors are supportive. I'm anxious to see as this progresses, if you keep the level of commitment that you currently have, because the one thing I've noticed on the questions were that the way they were worded, I mean, you're going to answer one way if you're a reasonable human being. I don't think it was positioned in such a way that you were going to get anybody opposing you. But my biggest concern is you guys are very reasonable people, and you're talking about making this flexible so that there could be some reason. What happens in 20 years when none of you are on that commission and there's unreasonable people on that commission? So I'm supportive of helping you do what you feel is right for your neighborhood, but I'm also cautioning you to be careful what you ask for, because it is another layer of government. And in 10 years, when somebody comes back and says, hey, there have been, in the last 5 years, there have been 0 petitions to this commission denied, it's going to be because you worked with people to come to an agreement. I'll warn you, that's the same thing the Board of Zoning Appeals does. I sat on that commission, that board as well. The reason, I know that's one of the big arguments is they haven't turned anything down. I would tell you to go back and look at how things were filed versus how they were passed. Rarely are any of them passed as filed.
Okay, that's a good point.
So somebody else could come in 20 years and say, these guys haven't denied anything. We need another layer of protection.
Yeah, I mean, I can't dispute that because I don't know what's going to happen. In my view, in 20 years, a lot of people are going to go, boy, those guys are really smart to do what they do.
And I hope you're right. I hope you're right. I'm being devil's advocate.
Understood.
I have one more comment on what you said, Joe, earlier. When you put this, I've done some research on this myself. I've actually spoken with the gentleman that's on the Noblesville Historic Committee. And, they actually have a group of people that actually will purchase these homes to do some of the restoration work. And that's kind of why I was talking about funding earlier. But, Zionsville, I want to say is very unique, but my mom taught me that it's just unique, just use unique. 'Cause you can't have very unique. Hope she's watching. But
I'm sure
but
she is.
what I wanted to point out is what you said, Joe, is these places that we don't want to be like, first of all, have this layer of protection. You also said that Zionsville has the highest price per square foot already compared to these guys. And I don't know what's done that for us already, but just something to swallow. And maybe it's these people out here, the people watching, it's the residents. I don't know. Maybe it's the smart decisions that the councils before us made, but it's just something we need to consider. I'm really proud that we have the highest price per square foot.
Don't quote me on that. I just said, I think.
Well,
I don't know if
You
that's.
said it on the record, so I'm.
All right,
using
all
it
right.
against- no,
I'll watch the
no,
video later.
no,
I think you're
perfect.
right.
I just wanted to consider that
You're right.
thought. Well,
So if I could just say something to that.
yes, Mark.
I think you're right. Per square foot price, particularly in the village, is very high. And it's because of what makes it special. That's what we don't want to lose. And we could. A lot of people say, oh, that would never happen here. I talked to Meg Pernsley, who runs the Indianapolis Historic Commission. Some of the things that have been done in Meridian Kessler, in other, areas of the city are amazing. And she will tell you, Meridian Kessler fought having any kind of preservation for decades. They were recognized historic on the historic registry, but they didn't have protection. They're begging for it now because people are buying homes, tearing them down and building these. I mean, they're completely ridiculous looking homes, but it's somebody's taste. And it's causing a lot of problems. So it can happen. And it can happen here. This is about the future. Protecting our asset, this wonderful asset that makes it so special, protecting it so it stays out.
All right, well, appreciate all the discussion tonight. I think we'll wrap it up so I can get home and put my kids to bed. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank
Looking
you all
forward to,
very much for your
to hearing more.
thoughtful comments, and I really appreciate it. We all do.
Thanks, everyone. All right, home stretch here, I promise. We've got a consideration of an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance. This is petition 2021-04-Z. This is the Goddard School. This is ordinance number 2021-04. Is there a representative to speak on this matter? We've got Brad, Doug, or Dia. You guys have been waiting patiently, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon, Town Council. My name is Brad Sheff with Y Engineers, office located at 10505 North College Avenue, Indianapolis. And with me also this evening is Dia Walls, also the owner of the property and Goddard School here in Zionsville today. So thank you for having us here this evening, as we're here to respectfully request a rezone at the property is also known as Lot 2 of the Zionsville Place Secondary Plat, and it's located at 2.6 acres. Yeah, 1580 Oak Street, Zionsville. Thank you. I was getting there. So yeah, right now we're currently a B2 zone, and the owners cannot build and operate the new Goddard Zionsville daycare at this facility. So we're here trying to get the zoning in a position where they could move the current Zionsville Goddard and operate on the new property that they own currently. And the second part of that equation, they would like to own and operate an office building of some sort. That is yet to be still defined and determined, but the concept plan that we have provided shows how the Goddard and the professional office would be facilitated, with Goddard being the big flagship of the site, then the office building being something probably a third to half the size of the daycare site. And they would be owned and operated by Dia and her family. So right now, Dia and her family owns the Goddard facility that's located just west adjacent. So they're planning on, yeah, okay, that's 1640 Oak Street. and they plan on relocating here, building the new one and operating the new one here today. And then as well as that professional office building. So we have been working with planning staff to get us for the early discussions on the rezone and the uses, and as well as working with the utility agencies, the stormwater group, and various other contacts with the town for the utilities, the infrastructure, the grading, the drainage, and all of the the infrastructure that will be needed and how it has to be set up to service a site. We have explored existing conditions. We know what we have to do after having all these conversations with the town and town staff. And so we're here tonight with respectfully requesting this rezone to allow the Goddard in Zionsville to relocate and have a newer facility, and as well as a future professional office building at this location.
And it looks like it's coming to us with a favorable recommendation from the planning commission, 7-0, correct?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Counselors, any questions on this request?
I'm just curious, the traffic flow on that is going to go through the, which property? Is it going to go through the Anytime Fitness block, or is it going to go through the medical office and the current Goddard School to the new one?
It'll be between it will not be coming from the medical right now.
Okay.
The lot 2 is the secondary development off of Oak Street. Behind you have the bank, then you have the strip retail, and then you have the 2 detention ponds, and they're located just further north behind there. So access is already established through the existing development.
Perfect.
Then the frontage does have cross access east and west. So we would just they would be just seated as connection to themselves right now.
This is a question for Dia. The traffic coming out of the medical complex now, a big concern of mine is West Oak Street traffic, and just making sure that especially our residents that have children are safe. I assume that the planning commission has looked at traffic flow, or have you provided a traffic study for this increase in traffic?
We have had conversations with town and where we provided the employee count, the child count, and basically all the ins and outs of the facility for that count. And they came back and said that a traffic study would not be warranted through the plan commission. As we have the advantage right now of for all the people coming and going with the site, we also have that existing, we're not a direct frontage on Oak Street. We are that second, if not, I would call it more of a third tier D because of the existing retail, then the ponds, and then us. So we do have that capability of staging and stacking and storing with traffic into the drive aisle through the pond area, then down through the existing development. So we have a ways off the right of way that we could stage and stack as needed to try to make this a safer facility.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Amy, does Wayne want to weigh in on this? I'm not even sure he's in the meeting, and if he doesn't, it's no big deal, but I just wanted to give him the
I don't
opportunity.
think he
Okay.
especially wanted to.
Okay, that's fine. Councilors, any other questions? Any
Make a
motions?
motion to approve.
Second.
First from Councilor Trailer, second from Councilor Melton. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Very good. Ordinance 2021-04 is introduced on first reading with a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Actually, I think that's incorrect, that it would not be the first reading on this. Is that correct? Since it's already been to the plan commission, Heather?
Correct. They've already had the
First reading, so that,
Right.
all right, so
I'm
that
sorry,
was, that was adopted
incorrect.
then
Yeah,
on final reading.
sorry, that was incorrect on your sheet.
Yep. Good news for you guys. Okay, last on new business, we've got a discussion of a request to direct the plan commission to rezone a specific property. Councilor Trailer, this is a request you had made, so the floor is yours.
Yeah, so this piggybacks on what the gentleman from the airport stood up and talked about. The property just to the south of the existing runway for the airport on the south side of 200 South. That property has been zoned residential for, I believe it's 13 years. It was zoned residential by the county at the request of the property owners. This is commonly referred to as the Cato property. This, with the runway extension that is going to happen, no matter what anybody may say, that's a done deal. It's going to happen, just a matter of when. With the runway extension, it's just a really bad idea for that property to remain residential. This picture up here shows where the property is. So you can see how close to the end of the runway you're talking about putting houses. I grew up in an aviation household. My father ran the FBO for our local airport, so I'm pretty well versed on airports. And one thing that I've always been taught is houses at the end of a runway are not a good idea. And we already get enough complaints from the neighborhood to the south of the one that could be built here. Now, this is just for display purposes, just to show where we're talking about. But the neighborhood to the south is Brookhaven and Fieldstone. Those folks already, they built at the end of a runway, and they voiced concerns over airplane traffic. So I think the only argument that could be made to keep this residential is that people building at the end of a runway would not complain about airplanes. That has proven to not be true. So I would, my ask here is that I looked into how do we go about rezoning this particular property, and either the property owner can request it or the town council can request for the plan commission to begin the process of rezoning this particular property. My recommendation would be to rezone it back to agricultural until such time that something is, the landowner wants to propose something on that property. With that, Heather, I would like to take a vote on this.
So we posted it no vote tonight. Typically what would happen, I think what we've contemplated is bringing this as a resolution for the council at the next meeting.
I thought we were going to have the resolution. So we don't have a resolution.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's something that we talked about with leadership. So the goal will be for the next council meeting, which is next Monday morning, we would have a resolution of the council basically directing the plan commission to begin the rezoning process. And then the process from there would be that the plan commission would follow their normal timelines and procedures for that rezoning, just as if a landowner would file a petition for rezone. So there is a timeline by which the plan commission would not be something that would be immediate, but it would inform the plan commission. I think we're doing that tonight as well with the conversation and the public comments made previously, that there is a desire that there not be a building of residential properties on that particular property. So it's giving them a more formal notice. We could do it through a couple different ways. Statute doesn't actually require us to do a resolution. We could also do a letter of this group. So if we wanted to take a more informal approach, we could, do something to direct this group with the approval of this group to, direct the council president to write a letter to the plan commission president, and the plan commission starting that process. So there's not a formal form. Traditionally, we've done it in resolution or taken some vote.
I think resolution makes sense. Plus, that means they don't have to write a letter.
Yeah. If we do a resolution, the one thing it gives us the opportunity to do is be very specific in the property description. So there's no question for the plan commission which particular parcel. It also gives us the opportunity, and we have one recommendation on the floor of what we're asking them to rezone it to, so that they have an understanding of the goals of the town council. So, and we can have that ready for distribution tomorrow, Amy, so that it gets included if there's a general will of this group to do so.
You are right, though, Brian. I get so many complaints about the airport, and I appreciate people think that we can do something about it, but the airport exists and has rights at a federal level. So, Mark talked about with the preservation district, things that happen, what it'll look like 20 years from now. I think having a bunch of development right by the airport 20 years from now will just create more concern, complaints, issues, safety issues. So I think it makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you bringing that to the council's attention.
Do we know why? Sam mentioned at the beginning that this has been brought up a number of times back and forth with the county. Do we know any particular reason why the county's never addressed it?
I don't.
Okay, I didn't know if there was.
Was it a parcel of land that was included prior to our reorganization, correct, Brian?
It was included in the reorganization.
Yes, so part of, I think, just for the history, for the council members who are newer, we have almost in Zionsville, like 3 different planning codes. We have the town of Zionsville urban, town of Zionsville rural, and then we've also got some Boone County properties that were zoned prior to reorganization that we've now incorporated into the town. So they've got additional designations originally designated by Boone County, and this happens to be one of those properties. So we have not taken any action by the town of Zionsville on this property in a number of years, is my understanding.
Right. There hasn't been, in my time on this council, there hasn't been anything filed on that property. So this is really, and there's still nothing filed, but we want to head this off because there's conversations happening that might as well cut it off now rather than get further down the road and people waste money.
Yep. No, makes sense. Very good. All right, we'll see this on the next agenda then. Heather, any other questions, councilors, on that?
When was it zoned? Was it zoned prior to
the reorg.
Prior to the reorg
By the county.
by the county? And are the owners, did we invite the owners tonight? I mean, is that?
No, it's
It's not the process.
No, because it, quite frankly, in my mind, this is, if they couldn't say anything that would convince me that houses at the end of a runway is a good idea.
So if it goes back to agricultural, or that's the suggestion that you made, that is that the only thing that this property owner has an option of? I mean, it's not going to go commercial because, right? Or is
Unless,
that-
I mean, they could always go to the plan commission and ask for a rezone of their own. So if we take it to, because the reason I suggested agricultural is because that's what it's used for currently.
Okay.
And they could continue to use it as is for agricultural. If they down the line have some commercial use that they want to ask for a zoning change, they can come back to the plan commission and ask for that.
All right, thank you.
And it sounds like that's amicable to the, I don't remember if it was Sam, William, or Sean that came up and said, whether it's commercial or something, just not, to your point, not homes.
Right. If a plane's gonna, God forbid a plane ever goes off the end of the runway, houses being there is just worst case scenario.
Yes.
No. All right. We'll move on to other matters. I know this has been a long meeting, so thank you for your patience. I did want to take a minute here really quick just to talk about Steve Jacob, who passed away last month. You probably know Steve, I've seen him around. He was on the Boone County Council for 20 years. He was president of that council at the time of his passing. He was also chairman of the Boone County Convention and Visitors Bureau, as well as on the executive committee of the Boone County Economic Development Corp. Plus, he found time to work with ZYSA and Rotary Club. He was an avid bird watcher, fisherman, outdoorsman. He was certainly a dear friend and mentor to many folks in this council. And most importantly, I think he was a father and husband and a grandfather. So I just wanted to acknowledge his service to our community, many benefits that we've seen as a result of that service, and certainly the loss that we'll feel in his absence. So I just wanted to make that quick comment here on other matters.
Yep.
Okay, we've got approval of claims. Any questions on claims here today? Any motions on claims?
Motion to approve.
Got a first from Councillor Choi.
Second.
Second from Councillor Melton. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Claims are approved by a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I heard Councillor Culp there first. So second, Councillor Culp. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thankfully none. Very good. We are adjourned by a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. The next regular town council meeting is scheduled for Monday, April 19th, 2021 at 7:30 a.m. This will be an in-person meeting, but there will also be virtual options as well. Thank you all.